Welcome to the only show bringing cops and the community together for some real talk and some real listening. This is uncut. This is uncensored. This is Black and Blue Live. Welcome to Black and Blue Live, everybody. How you guys doing today? Thank you for joining me. My name is Dale. I'm the host. Thank you, everybody out there watching us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. Today's going to be a really special edition of the Black and Blue podcast, the Black and Blue Live, because moving forward here, this girl here, this lady here has been a strong supporter, stern supporter of the Black and Blue podcast since day one. She was my very first guest. She's been on the lives as well. And now she's agreed to be my co-host. Everybody, please help me welcome in Miss Elizabeth Green.
Hey. Hello.
How you doing, lady?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Glad you're on.
I'm
is gonna
so
be fun.
excited. It's gonna be good stuff.
Yes. Yeah, let's do this. So here we go. Our topic today is we're gonna have some law enforcement leaders from across this great nation of ours. They all happen to be African Americans, so we want to talk about that as well. Our first guest here, he is a 26-year veteran of the Oklahoma State University Police Department. Everybody, please help me welcome in Chief Leon Jones. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
We are excellent.
Good.
So appreciate you guys having me on.
Joining us.
Yeah, thank you. How's the weather out there in Oklahoma?
It's a little cool, windy, and raining today.
Okay,
but we were looking forward to a little break in the heat.
Yeah. Yes, we send some of that rain this way out here in California. We need it.
Yeah.
All right, my next guest here is a special agent in charge. Special agent in charge with the U.S. Department of Labor, the Office of the Inspector General. He's got 32 years of law enforcement experience. Please help me welcome in Mr. Rafiq Ahmad.
Good evening.
How you doing, sir?
Pretty well. How are you all?
Doing good. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
Excellent. And where are you right now? You in Georgia? Where are you?
We're in the Peach State in Georgia.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. Our next guest here is also a special agent in charge. He's with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. She has 28 years of law enforcement experience. Please help me welcome in Ms. Trevor Randall.
Hi, Dale. Doing great, Dale. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right. So you're in the ATL, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, glad to have you here. And then our last guest here, he is a chief of police in the state of Illinois in Oak Park. He's got a 26 years of law enforcement experience as well. Everyone, please help me welcome in Chief LaDon Reynolds.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you. So you are in Illinois. Where is Illinois, Oak Park, Illinois, for our viewers that don't know?
Oak Park, Illinois borders the western side of the city of Chicago and also part of the northwest side of the city of Chicago. So we're a bedroom community right next door. You can cross the street and you're in Oak Park, or cross back and you're in the city of Chicago.
All right. Appreciate you for coming on.
Absolutely.
All right. So we wanted to talk about leadership. That's today's topic here is leadership in law enforcement. and I gave you guys introduction, and you guys have a breadth of knowledge and years of experience. We'll start with you, Leon. Tell everybody about your department, where it is, and how long what you've done there, and how long you've been chief and all that.
So, Oklahoma State University is located in Stillwater, Oklahoma, which is about right in the middle of the state. I started as a patrol officer back in 1994, and I worked my way up through the ranks until I reached the rank of chief in 2017. So did various assignments along the way. Lake patrol, started the bike patrol here, did a lot of community policing. Then, of course, went to the FBI National Academy. While working here, I went back to school and attained my master's degree. So I kept myself busy along the way, and everything kind of paid off.
Oh yeah. How large is your department?
We have 35 officers when we're fully staffed.
All right.
I have about anywhere between 10 to 15 student employees, and then a staff that's about 15.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, we'll move right down on there to the bottom. Is Trevor Randall. Tell everybody about you, your job, and what it all entails there. How long you've been in law enforcement?
Thank you, Dale. I've been in law enforcement for 28 years. The last 25 of those years, I have been fortunate to be a part of a state police agency, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. As an agent with that agency, I came through the ranks again, just like Chief mentioned, starting off as a narcotics agent, later on becoming a special agent, assistant agent in charge, and then agent in charge. Over those years, I've worked various investigations and also been in charge of those investigations where our primary mission is violent crimes and violent felonies.
All right. I'm glad to have you here. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Moving right along, Chief LaDon Reynolds, tell everybody about your department, how long you've been there, and what you do there.
Okay, well, so as I said before, Oak Park Police Department, it's a suburb of Chicago. It's actually, the town of Oak Park is famous for Frank Lloyd Wright. I don't know if anyone knows who that is. He's a famous architect. And we also have other people who are from Oak Park. Sears Roebuck is from Oak Park. Who else? Ernest Hemingway. And Homer Simpson is also from Oak Park. So we've got kind of a wide variety of individuals who can call Oak Park home.
Did you say Homer Simpson?
I said the voice of Homer Simpson.
That's right.
Okay.
He's from Oak Park, not actually Homer Simpson.
Okay.
But
got you.
Been there for 26 years. I started in 1994, like Chief Jones did. Worked my way up. Spent a couple of years in patrol. Became a tactical officer, then a detective. Took the sergeant's test just to get the experience, and ended up getting promoted. And so it was odd because the majority of the individuals who were, my subordinates at the time were old enough to be my father or mother. So I had to figure out, that I'll tell you, that was my first leadership lesson. It's not my job to tell my subordinates what to do. They're paid to do a job. It's my job to create an environment where they can do their best work. And so, what I wanted to be was a facilitator for them. After being a patrol sergeant, kind of moved around. I was a detective sergeant, in charge of field training for a little while. I was a tactical leader on the SWAT team, got promoted to commander, and then spent time as a patrol commander, then a detective commander of the SWAT team. Got promoted to deputy chief, and then 2 years ago, promoted to chief. Actually, less than 2 years ago, January of 2019. So, kind of bounced around a little bit within the agency, but I think I have a pretty good perspective on, what's needed for the community. And, they raised me, right? So I've been there longer. I've been there half my life. So
yeah,
it's been a great experience. Yeah.
All right. So we are here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. So make sure you send in those comments and questions. Our first one here is from a Robert Steed on YouTube. He says, GA Noble chapter representing. So we got two Noble members from Georgia, and we'll have our last, but certainly not least person talk about that. Mr. Rafiq Ahmad, tell everybody what you do, where you work, and how long you've been there.
Currently, I'm the special agent in charge with the Department of Labor Office of Inspector General. In that position, I oversee the fraud investigations for the Southeast region, so it covers eight states. I spent started my career with ATF in 1987, and I think I probably did everything there except for wash dishes. So I was there for a very long time, where I developed my leadership skills from the various leaders that I was around. Did everything from being a street agent, doing undercover work, doing violent crime, to actually becoming a manager. Stayed there for a while, and then had an opportunity to go to Department of Labor, where I could see a different side as far as the financial fraud investigations. So that's been a challenge and a learning experience. Piggyback off of Chief Reynolds says, my job is easy. I only have to do really two things, is to provide resources and remove obstacles. I'm not the doer. I'm the one that makes sure that the people have the environment to get things done. So I think one of the most important things as a leader is to not over exaggerate your importance. If it's not for the people who work under you, your staff, you really aren't getting a lot of stuff done. So you have to provide an environment where people trust you. And I always say this: I would rather provide an environment where someone is willing to take a bullet for me rather than try to put a bullet in me. So I think that if you provide that type of environment for your staff, it's not anything that they won't do for you, and they are the ones who really make you what you are as a leader. So thank you, Chief Reynolds, for that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, had my mute on. I see you wearing that. Let me jump in real quick, Lizzie. The Noble shirt that you got on there, Feek. We had a comment about that. Why don't you tell everybody what that is?
Yes, Nobles, National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. Myself and Tabor are members of the Georgia chapter, where I currently serve as the chapter's president.
All right, so we're in the midst of royalty here.
Tabor, yes. Yeah. I'm just an underling. I just do what he tells me to do.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lizzie. You had something you were going to say there? No. Okay. All right. So, you guys have been in law enforcement a long time. We know how you guys progressed through the ranks there. What is leadership to you? What is your leadership style? I know, Rafiq, you told about, your job is to make sure that your people have the resources and the environment to succeed. What do you think that is to you? Leadership is to you. Let's start with you, Chief Jones.
Well, for me, as I began work, period, I got to work under some amazing people that kind of mentored me to move me along. The big part of it was motivation. If everybody's happy, they'll come and do whatever you want. The other part of that is transparency. You tell anybody what you want or ask them what you want, they'll break the bus to get it for you. So it's not like it's almost kind of building a family in sort of a way where you have an older brother, but at the same time, just, if someone needs help, if you can help them, you do it. If they don't need help, stay out of the way and let them get it done. But leading by example is me. I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do. And when it comes down to it, I'll be right there in the greens with them. So
yeah,
that's what it kind of means to me, is just, hopefully I can keep everybody motivated. I have a great group of guys here working. It was a little different being promoted while I worked with them in the field, and then being promoted to chief. It was a little different, but learning how to navigate that and having their support really helped. They make me look very good.
Well, you don't have a hard time looking good. You look pretty good there. I like the salt and pepper look there. You look pretty good. Look like you're pretty good shape there too. So
well, they said, once I got promoted, that kind of filled in a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
It does. It does.
Yeah, yeah. You ever see those progressions of presidents? You know,
Oh
when they
yeah.
first go into office and then when they leave, like Obama was like, he was all grayed out. Yeah, yeah. Trevor, why don't you tell everybody about what leadership means to you, especially being an African American female in your office?
You know, I think that it's so many things. I can pull out a couple of things I would like to highlight that sometimes people often miss. Um, Earning the respect of men. Let's talk about that. Being a female in law enforcement, certainly Elizabeth can understand is that we're in a male dominated field already. You know, when I first came into law enforcement, I remember being told that I was responsible for making the coffee. And at the time, I didn't know any better. So I did that. Then you fast forward some years and you know I'm in charge or responsible for agents, you know, working in the field. You know, we're stepping over bodies and things of that nature. And I found out very quickly as a leader, don't ask anybody to do anything that you're not willing to do. I found out that although you're the leader, you may be the chief or you're the agent in charge, if you're in the trenches with them and they see that or you're willing to, that's, I guess, the optimum word, being willing to do the same thing that you ask of others. That goes a long way. And that garnered a lot of respect out of those guys that weren't really sure what to expect. When I arrived on scene as an ASAC many years ago, I remember that as an experience. And also, more importantly, it's easy to lead when everything's going great, right? I'm sure our chiefs can attest to that.
Yep.
But being a leader really shows up and shows true when things are not going so well, you know, when the crap is hitting the fan. Being able to stand up and answer those tough questions. That's something that, you know, folks are having to stand up now and, you know, really show who they are or who they are not. Being willing to get out there in front of these incidents going on all around the country, whether I have to turn my back and shield my folks because they are being you know, falsely persecuted, so to speak. Being able to stand up for your folks and fight for them is also can be difficult because the leader is in that position where you know they got the people above them they have to make happy, but you've got to fight for those people and fend for them like you would do anybody in your own family, as the chief mentioned.
Right, right. And you know, your position is, you know, your law enforcement, but it's a lot of politics involved in your positions too. You know, the people above you. How do you guys straddle the responsibilities of being chief, being the leader of the people that are underneath you, and kind of servicing the people above you as well, especially the politicians? We'll speak to you, Rafiq, on that as well. Go ahead, Rafiq.
Well, I think I don't know if it was Chief Jones that said it. One of the big things is transparency.
Yes.
I tell people that, you know, if I say something to you, or if I give in a directive to my people, I'm going to tell them that, you know, if it comes directly from me, I'm going to tell them that. If it comes from someone else, then I'm going to tell them that as well. You know, so I'm never going to claim something, you know, that that didn't happen. I tell people when you get to the point where your people are no longer confident, you know, or trust you, then all you are from that point forward is a manager, because you're never going to be a leader again. You can't lose your people's trust by not being transparent with them or ever, you know, lying to them. I think I read something one time that said that for every compelling reason there is to tell a lie, there's even a more compelling reason to tell the truth. You know, so that's one. Two, you have to master your fear. You know, and what I mean by that is, you know, yeah, there's going to be times where you're going to be unsure, you know, of yourself in a given situation, because it may be a situation that you haven't faced before. You know, but if you can, you know, master your fear by making that fear mean something different. So to me, it means face everything and rise. You know, so I just try to keep that in mind. So you don't run from anything. Whatever comes down the pipe, you're going to face that and you're going to deal with it. You know, sometimes it may go well, sometimes it may not go well. But if your people see that, you know, you're never going to run things, like Trevor said, you're going to stand up, you know, for them. When I tell people that whenever you're right or when you're right, there's no bigger advocate for you than me. But if it's a situation where there needs to be some type of correction, then we're going to correct that, and make sure that we can move on and try to make it a learning experience to make people better. So sometimes you do have things that come from above you that you may not agree with, but it's your job as the leader to make that happen. And you don't necessarily have to give the commentary and say, well, hey, I don't agree with this. It's like, hey, here's what our directive is, and so we need to make that happen. And then make sure that you're taking care of your people. Make sure that you understand that each leader has a complete toolbox, and you have to explore all the tools in that toolbox and make sure that you understand that you may have 3 different people, but you can't use the same leadership style with all 3 of them. You have to figure out what the needs are for that particular individual, shape your leadership style for that individual, and make sure you're using all of your tools, and not grab a hammer for everything.
Absolutely. Before we move on, I want to remind everybody that we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. So keep those comments and questions coming. GG Squad says that's so true. I would assume that they were talking about what you said there, Rafiq. And Angel Huerter says excellent perspective. So we appreciate all those comments coming on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope. And Jermaine Harris says outstanding panel. So we love all you guys with different range of experience and different areas of expertise. So we appreciate you guys for that. So again, we didn't get to you, LaDon, about the leadership question. You're working for a city out there in Illinois. I'm sure you're being pulled by your mayors and your city councilmen, and then you're being pulled by people within your own department. How do you balance that?
It's actually a great question, especially at the local level. So I'm a person who thinks that context is important. And as local law enforcement or a local police agency, it is your duty and responsibility to police through the collective consciousness of the community. Our authority comes from the citizens. So, the elected officials are elected by the citizens, and they speak to what the citizens want. It's not the LaDon Reynolds Police Department or the, Officer Smith Police Department. What we do is we're professionals. We utilize our knowledge, information, our acumen, and the tools of the trade that we have to facilitate what is promised to everyone through the Constitution, right? To ensure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. You think about that preamble, it talks about we the people. And so it's not, what the individual police officer's perspective is, or that sergeant or that lieutenant or that commander. It's really about what's good for the community. So in order to police, you have to have that collaborative process. And as Chief Jones mentioned and Brother Rafiq mentioned, it's really about transparency, honesty, integrity, and trust, right? So the foundation of any relationship, whether it be between a mother and child or a romantic relationship or 2 friends, foundation of any relationship, trust. And I think that same thing goes for the relationship between the police and the community. And so as we navigate, these difficult conversations, as we navigate the wants and needs of the elected officials, my job is to take those wants and needs of the elected officials and the citizens and filter that through best practices in policing and give that information to the officers so they can facilitate it, through professionalism. And my thing is this, you can't police the same way in San Diego that you police in Chicago. You need to talk to the citizens there. You can't police the same way in Oklahoma that you police in New York. And so you need that collaborative process, that collective conversation. And if an officer or a department member doesn't, support that, then I think there's opportunities there for them to rethink where they work. You know what I mean? Because we're there to serve, and that's what it boils down to.
That's right.
Kind of piggybacking off of everything that you all have said in regards to leadership and understanding, one child may do well with affirmation or the other one with time or whatever that is. In this process, how did you feel like cultivating leadership with those that you're supervising? Like, how did you build those skills so that it was kind of the culture of the department, not to micromanage, but to create and facilitate environments for your people to thrive. What were some of the tools you used to kind of keep it trickling down and then trickling up?
You can go ahead, Trebor, or go ahead,
So
Leon. Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to say that a lot of it is recognizing individuals as individuals and not like the whole group. So diversity is a big part of any agency or any place. So you can't treat everybody the same. And you might have to take somebody to the side and just, if it's correction, let them know that's exactly what it is. It's not anything personal. We are here to work for the community. We are here to provide them the best services that we can. So we have to look at it like that and try to figure out a way to motivate that individual. Now, when you're in a group, you're giving the speech, the presentation, the motivation. But as individuals, you're trying to figure out a way to get them motivated to do what needs to be done at the department, just like LaDon said.
Yeah. What's your feeling on that, Trebor?
I think one of the tools, she talked about the different tools. He's already touched on one. Um, I think buy-in. It's like anything else, whether you're working on a community project, you're about to change the strategy, you're about to implement a policy within your agency or a plan within your particular unit. I think buy-in is important, right? Because at the end of the day, and as chiefs or as agents in charge, we know that the goal is whatever this move or this change is going to be, right? Where we're here, we need to be here. But when you allow them the opportunity to share their ideas and you get their buy in, then they feel like, hey, we arrived at this together. That's been my personal experience because they feel like where you're listening, I had a part in this. I gave some suggestions and we still arrived at the same end goal. There was still a change or there was still a policy or a program implementation, but allowing them to have that buy in and they feel like they're a part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Producer Liz, we had a comment up there. Jermaine Harris on Facebook says a two-part question. Please ask the guests. So we're asking you how they develop the leadership in their frontline supervisors. Speak to the distinction between supervising and leading. Go ahead, LaDon.
And this kind of goes back to what Trebor said. One of the things that I tell my staff is that all of us are smarter than one of us, right? So that kind of goes into that buy-in. What's in it for me? From a supervision standpoint, frontline supervisors, sergeants, in my opinion, the most important members in facilitating the police mission in the department. And they have to understand the direction, the vision, and they have to be the ones to communicate that to frontline staff, and so one of the things that I do is to make sure that I meet with my sergeants so they get the information directly from me, right? You share messages and you give it to them repeatedly. So yes, I share information with my command staff. We come up with ideas and vision for the department, but then I share that information with the sergeants directly. They meet with the chief, and then that information is reinforced daily through their interactions with their commanders. And so I think it's important to give them the information as it relates to the vision. Also, um, workforce education and development. You have to give individuals the information, either formal or informal education, so that they have uh, the current best practices and all of the tools to make what policing is today, right? Because we all know it changes, come to fruition for the community. So I believe in sending them to schools. I believe in, sending out articles. I send out uh, all types of notes and give suggestions on books because we have to be lifelong learners as we traverse this, this plane that is American society, and we're right in the front of it. These officers need to be able to handle the societal issues that confront them.
Yeah.
And to answer these questions about the difference between supervising versus leading, supervising is really management, right? Holding people accountable. Leading is being the example, tapping into their talents, right? Kind of like being a coach, finding out what that individual has to bring to the department because everybody has their own skill set to contribute to the greater good. And, if you're a leader, you can identify those talents and then bring them to fruition for the entire organization. So that's my short take on that.
All right. That was short. Okay. No, it's all good, brother. Vivi V on Facebook says, how does a leader break old habits of a team that resists change? What do you think about that, Rafiq? You there? Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear that. I can hear it. One of the things has to do with what Trebor said is buy-in. By you getting buy-in from your people, I think Chief Reynolds said the same thing. Or something similar as far as them being a part of it. Then you can start changing that culture. You can't be afraid to explain stuff. If your leadership style is because I said so, that's only going to go a certain distance before people start before you start to meet resistance. And so you have to understand there's a difference between people being obedient, and people actually following you. People will obey because you're your title, your position, but you actually want followership. You want people to and followership comes with buy-in. So they're buying into what you're saying, and then they help you to change that culture. So one of the things that I do when I go to a new place, I find the influential person who's there, because before you came, there was somebody who was the go-to person, or somebody that your people talks to, or ran ideas by. So you find out who that person is, and then you get that person to buy in. That person becomes a salesman for you, to the rest of your people, as far as helping you to spread spread those ideas and change that, or spread that vision and change the culture. So I think that's one of the big things is not being afraid to get that buy-in, not being afraid to explain things. That's not a weakness.
All right. Yeah. So as leaders in your organizations, and you guys are all African Americans, has there ever been an African American in that position before for each of you? What about you, Leon?
No, I was the first African American chief here at Oklahoma State University.
All right.
Which that was I didn't realize it when I got promoted and we did the ceremony. And my dad, we were walking out, and he looked at me and he's like, "This is a big deal." And he explained it to me, and it's kind of like, wow, I guess it is. So it was probably about 3 months it ran newspapers. It was kind of overwhelming a little bit at first, but yeah, it was. I just made history. Is all I can say. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
it was scary at the same time, because being the first African American chief here, I can't fail, because I don't want to take away from somebody else because of my if I fail. So I want to do the best I can, so it give others the opportunity to do it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a photo, I guess one of those times that you said it was running through the papers and social media and all that. I saw a photo, I guess it was either your ceremony or the city of Oklahoma's chief, who's Black as well, right? It was you, him, I think Oklahoma City College chief.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a great photo. And they said it was historic too. So
yes,
that was beautiful. Yeah.
Question for you, Chief Jones. In one of the articles, you had made the quote, "It's my opinion that if you are going to work somewhere, you need to provide your best." And you talked about setting goals and constantly achieving to that. What goals would you, I guess, you say that charted your progress in this? And what would you say to those who are looking for leadership or looking to promote? Like, what kind of blueprint would you tell them to lay out for themselves?
So at 94, when I came in to meet with the chief for my final interview, he always asked everybody, where do you see yourself in 20 years or 10 years? And I told him I wanted to sit where he's sitting. And so he laid a path out to me. He said, you need to go back to school, you need to get training, years, and like pay attention. And so I promised him I'd go back to school and get my degree. And it was just a bachelor's at the time. So I went back to school, got my degree, and I just kept going until I got my master's. And everything just kind of fell in place from there. So everybody that I meet with, and I meet with every officer on a constant basis. I come in early in the morning so I can see the night shift leaving, or I or stay late so I can catch the evening guys coming in. And I would meet with them personally and just say, hey, I constantly ask, what's your goals? Because like I said, and it's my opinion, but if you're going to work somewhere, you want to be the best that you can be. And my goal was to move to the top. If their goal is not to move to the top, if they just want to be where they're at, then that's a goal. And so I want to give them, options on how to be the best they can be. It also gives me the opportunity to look at them and see if they're willing to do that too. If they don't have any goals, if they don't have any dreams of moving forward, or just they really don't want to be here, then I need to help them find where they need to be.
Yeah.
So it's just it's, as you guys know, back when we started, we were, leadership was different. The followers, it was compliance basically. Because I told you to do so, you went out and did it, and you trusted the supervisor because they wouldn't be there if they didn't know what they were doing. The younger kids these days, they got to have that buy-in. Correct. You can't say just because I said so. So you have to give them the buy-in. I think once again, it's transparency. Let them know let them tell you what they want, give you the ideas, and you use it. If you can't use it, you'd be straight honest with them. You can't use it, but you give them a reason why you can't. So if they ask why, they're not questioning. They really want to know why.
Yeah.
And so we can't be afraid to just give them the answers. It was a hard switch for me at first, but as I, got into leadership a little bit more when I was a lieutenant, training lieutenant especially, I started learning that it's not a question of why. They really want to know why. And that's how you train people to move forward as well. So my biggest goal now as a leader is to train somebody else to come in here and take this spot. I want them to know it's fun. I enjoy this. And I want them to be able to enjoy it as well. So when I get ready to leave, if they have 10 people out of this department that applies for the chief position, I've done my job. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah. And piggybacking on that, mentoring people is kind of different for, say, you, Trebor and Rafiq, because if people rise up and they want to be a SAC, they can go somewhere else. They don't have to take your job. But it's a little different for you, Chief Jones and Chief Reynolds, that if someone wants to be a chief and you're still sitting in that chair, they got to go somewhere else. How do you guys feel about, training your people to go off and take opportunities elsewhere? Go ahead, LaDon.
I think that is the mark of a true professional. If I can, develop individuals in my organization to go out and lead other organizations to a better height in policing, then that just means I've done my job. Like Chief Jones said, my job is to train the person to replace me, and I tell all of my staff members, all of my supervisors, find somebody to replace you, because at some point we all leave, right? And what you want is to have someone ready to come behind you to carry on that torch. So I think it's a wonderful thing. That's part of your mandate as a leader and as a chief.
Absolutely. And Vivi V on Facebook says, Trebor, what was the biggest barrier as a female traversing through the ranks?
Wow. Well, to address your very first question that she had, someone mentioned about for each of us, whether we were first or not. When I was promoted to Special Agent in Charge in 2014, I was only the second African American woman to be promoted to that rank within my state agency. Um,
Wow.
and that was obviously it was an accomplishment, but at the same time, it let us know where we had some work to do in terms of that mentorship and in terms of that reach back, to help someone else. But the challenge is, I don't know if she was listening earlier when I was talking about 28 years ago at the start of my career, being told that although I had a gun and a badge like the other deputies, I was told that I needed to make the coffee and I needed to answer the phones. If there was a ceremony in the courtroom with the judges and all, then again, it was like, well, somebody's got to answer the phones. And, when you're the grunt and you're new, you're kind of like, okay, maybe this is normal. And then you start figuring out, well, I'm told to do this because I'm a woman. Um, there were certainly challenges throughout. Um, there were opportunities, though, as I talked about being promoted to an assistant special agent in charge back in, I think, 2007. And those guys were waiting, right? They were waiting to see, I guess, kind of, they want to see what you're made of. They just want you to be able to do the job. That's what I found out, that they want you to be able to come in the door and be able to do the job of any other agent carrying that badge and that gun, right? And being willing again to get in the trenches with them side by side. And those guys, we trusted each other. We had each other backs, whether that was when I was on the street, wearing a uniform, or when I swapped that for the coat and tie, the standard agent look. We all do the same training. We get out there with those rifles and those long guns. And as I mentioned earlier, being, 5 feet tall, the little pistol packing mama, sometimes they call it. They just want to know that you can do the job. So certainly there were challenges. Again, being in the area, not being from Georgia, but being in Georgia, I remember many years ago when I started my family. Um, there was a comment made, or there was a person within the organization, long gone now, that commented that if there was a pregnant officer or agent or someone coming to an assignment, that they felt like that was an instant handicap, and that they would automatically feel like they were short an officer or an agent or something to that effect. That person was in leadership, but that was their opinion, right? So, and that's not the case anymore, of course. I would hope with any of our departments, but certainly there were challenges, and you don't. I always tell the young ladies when they come into law enforcement, don't go through this job trying too hard to prove yourself. All you have to do is do the job, right? And that's anybody is going to respect that. We get equal pay. We carry the same gun, the same badge, and we need to be able to do that work side by side. And that garnered respect, I really have to say. So certainly challenges were there, but we worked through those.
All right, glad to hear that.
So you guys are, it's been a constant thing about mentorship, and whether there was someone that you could talk to, or there was a path sometimes laid out, or there was a connection. What advice would you give to someone looking for mentorship, or what is the best way of going about that? Especially like if you're in an agency or even in a career where there may not be someone that looks like you, or that you may not necessarily have a immediate visual connection or immediate way to connect with someone. What do you do to recommend garnering those relationships that may be outside of your comfort zone, or mentorships to help you along your career and your path?
I think this is where Noble steps in. I'm also a member of Noble, the Chicago chapter, and I'll defer to Brother Ahmad or Trevor if you guys want to speak more about Noble. But I think joining those types of organizations, because then you're exposed to different individuals at various different ranks in various different organizations, and you'll find that a lot of our plights, a lot of our experiences are similar. There's a lot of common ground. So I would say Noble, and then also development training, because that's a good place to network.
Yep.
I think Chief Reynolds is absolutely right. I mean, Noble is an excellent organization, to be able to gain from that positive network. The other thing I will say is, do not be afraid to seek a mentor outside of your immediate surroundings. Do not be afraid to seek a mentor who doesn't look like you. It could be a female. It could be someone that's a different race. To be someone with a different department. One of the biggest mentors that I had in the leadership position was our Atlanta police chief, Chief Turner. I was able to attend meetings that he allowed me to attend with his command staff every week, and I was able to observe his leadership style. I think it was Chief Reynolds that talked about creating a vision and then communicating that vision. I'm not sure if that was one of the chiefs mentioned that, but you got to communicate. You can't take it for granted that people know what the vision is. So I learned that from Chief Turner. He made it almost like a bumper sticker. it was something where he recited that mission so much and so often that I never worked for the department, and that was years ago. I still remember, what their mission statement was, for the city of Atlanta. So don't be afraid to seek mentors that don't look like you, that are in your in your surroundings, and that inevitably that will make you, I think, a better leader yourself. So even if you are a leader now, and you consider yourself a mentor, you can't be afraid to be a mentee. So when you think that there's something that someone is doing better than you, or that you would like to emulate, ask them, seek their advice, and most times they'll be willing to give it to you. So be receptive, to making yourself better, understand what your strengths and your challenges are, and work on those challenges to make yourself better. And I think that if you do that constantly, you can't help but become a better leader.
And I'll
Absolutely.
add to that if we have time. Um, if you don't know anybody, that's where I would tell you to connect with a professional organization, whether it be Noble or whether it be any of the other organizations that are out here. If you don't know where to start, because they're instantly going to snatch you up, take you under their wing, and somebody is going to latch on to you, whether it's the network to start your career or whether it be what he's talking about here, where you find that leader, find that person that is willing to not tell you what you want to hear, but tell you what you need to hear. Tell you when, hey, I have to disagree with you on that, or you're going about this the wrong way. I can remember before I ever went to an assessment center to start preparing for promotions, Noble had actually put on a training just for
Right.
assessments,
Yep.
just to be able to better prepare us for that next level, right? Because in some cases, everybody doesn't interview well, for example. Instructors tend to do better, right? Talkers, people are natural talkers. But if you've never been before an assessment center, the chief mentioned, I think it was for sergeant, and he was like, oh, lo and behold, I got it. He went for practice, right? I think that's what I heard you say. Well, we had a tool in place by way of this professional organization that they didn't have to go before the board as a practice. So once again, linking up with a professional organization is so important in that mentorship piece. And they're also going to do things and have the trainings that Noble puts on each chapter in all 50 states and across the globe. To be able to help develop that next level of leader and to develop the people that are going to replace us.
Absolutely. And again, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. Keep those comments and questions coming. Robert Steed on YouTube says Noble with a few exclamation points. So he must be a member there. And Chelsea Jones Owens on Facebook says outstanding leadership panel. Thank you. We appreciate your comments. And Armandia Rojas says so important in reform. So we appreciate your comments there as well. Trebor, I know you mentioned earlier that it's important for you to still get out there and do the things that your agents are doing to make sure that they see that you're still willing to get out there in the trenches. How do you guys feel about that, being in your positions, getting out there, say the two chiefs here, actually getting out and doing police work still, even though you're in administrative roles, and you too, Rafiq and Trebor, getting out and doing some investigations with your troops every now and then, doing a raid every now, a search warrant every now and then. How important is that to get out there, that image for your people?
Well, I have made it a habit to do so, just to let them know that I can still do it, for one, and let me know that I can still do it. Last Christmas, came in and sent one of the guys home, said, hey, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm working. I said, no, you don't. Go home and spend it with your family. So it's just it's motivation for all of us. And, you can't really give orders if you don't know what you're doing. So I got to still know how to work the cars and do the computers and all that stuff. Write reports, take accident reports. I still go out and do lake patrol every now and then. And I also is the chief over at the OSU Tulsa campus. So I'll go over there and do some shifts with them as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's
That's
really
What
important.
about you, Chief Reynolds?
You know, I probably was able to get out a little bit more when I was a deputy chief because then I'm the chief of a bureau. I do get out, and you know, it's not unusual for me to make a traffic stop or respond to a alarm call. There are certain things that, you know, unfortunately. Um, so here's what happens when you show up. Everybody just kind of looks at you, and they're like, "Yeah, what do we do?" You know what I mean? The sergeant's on the scene, the commander. So I have to be careful. Does that make sense to you? I have to be careful because
Nobody wants to be micromanaged.
Yeah.
They worried it's an IA or a
right.
trap.
So
Right.
I have to be careful because sometimes if I show up, then I become the center of attention. So, um, yeah, I do like to get out and do police work because a long time ago I used to be a policeman, but
Yeah.
I have to be careful.
Yeah. Or when the patrol officers hear you on the radio, like, oh, what is the chief doing? Come on, stop running plates. Go
I
back
was
to your
told,
office.
I was told there's a code that goes out when I'm on the street. You know, so
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't want them to be, fearful, as she mentioned. I know as an ASAC, I remember being out on a case. So that's the assistant special agent in charge. And when the special agent in charge came out, to Chief's point, they all kind of like, it was like the deer in the headlights. And it's like, hey guys, I'm going to keep him busy. You keep doing your job. You know what I mean? So I can see both sides of that, certainly. These guys, I know they're willing to get their hands dirty if needed. I can see it in their eyes, but it is important that you find a way to do that. Chief, I commend you, for taking that officer shift. You have a smaller department, you're able to do that and sending them home for Christmas. He will never forget that. I assure you.
Yeah.
That's good
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
How do you guys, because of that happening, obviously, as you promote your responsibilities and everything shifts, right? Because now you have a different hat to wear. How do you still stay committed? Because you had mentioned also, the transparency, but the trust that you're going to fight for your team and that you're here for us. How do you keep connected to your foot soldiers and middle management? How do you stay connected and relevant so that we buy in, believing that, you're fighting for us, whatever level that is? What do you recommend for leaders who are promoting or those that are looking? How do we get consistency and staying in touch that I'm not just a number? There's value. You find value in me outside of just the staffing or, patrol schedule.
yeah. So for me, I think it's important to understand that the leadership in the unions. I have several unions in my organization. Leadership in the unions, they're part of your leadership team as well. And so right now, I have with COVID, we had a weekly meeting with the union to let them know what was going on. But I always maintain a positive relationship because, again, there's that trust, right? So if they've elected these leaders in the union to represent them, I want to make sure that the union is involved wherever I can involve them, right? I give them a heads up. This is coming down the pipe. This is something that we're looking at. What are your thoughts on this? Because I used to be the president of the Sergeants and Lieutenants Association. And so these individuals might be the future sergeants and commanders in the organization. So I think transparency is key. And then also, for me, it's like board meetings, talking to the elected officials. And when I speak to the media, one of the first things I always say is that the men and women of my agency are out there doing good work. And, they're the ones putting on uniform and leaving their homes in the middle of the night, leaving their families to protect the citizens of Oak Park. And so I value anyone who makes that type of commitment, that selfless commitment to anyone else. And I make sure I tell them.
No doubt. No doubt. Another comment on YouTube. Robert says, chaos. Chief has arrived on scene. So that's another one of those codes there for you. So if you hear chaos,
No chill, Robert.
you know that one. Rafiq, you didn't get a chance to answer the question about other African Americans being in your position prior to you.
Yes, there was a brother prior to me, Doug Cologne, who everyone respected. So when I came in, I had that legacy to uphold. But one of the things I did was he had retired, and that's how I ended up kind of come into the position. But one of the things I did was I reached out to him. Even though he was retired, I talked to him. I continued to actually get advice from him as far as what the agency was like, what his staff was like, some of the potholes and pitfalls that he may have come across, just to make sure I didn't make those same mistakes. So lucky for me, there was someone that had done that role before me. Now there aren't a lot of me's, in the agency, but I think it goes back to Trebor's point. People want to know generally two things when you take over as a leader. So when Chief Jones became the chief, Chief Reynolds became the chief, and when Trebor became the SAC, the first thing the people who work under you did, they researched you. They called around to find out if there was anybody who knew you, what type of person you were, and did you know your job? That was probably one of the first questions that they asked anybody was, hey, does this person know what they're doing? And once they are, confident that you know what you're doing, then, it's easier for you to gain their trust. It's easier for them to get that buy-in. It's easier for them, to believe in you as a leader because they know your history. So everyone of us on this panel who's been a leader, believe me, your people checked around to find out, if someone knew you and, what was your pedigree, and that was what helped you, to get that buy-in when you came in. So Chief Jones, Chief Reynolds, maybe Trebor might have been different, but Chief Jones, it wasn't your good looks, that made him buy in. That Trebor is different. They probably were trying to, do whatever you said do, because that's how we do when we see, gorgeous women like you and Elizabeth. We tend to do what we're told. But for Chief Reynolds, myself, and Chief Jones, a little bit harder. Looks don't get it all done. But
I wish it was that easy.
Not quite. AB on YouTube says it's great being able to hear all you. Thank you for keeping our community safe. Thank you for your comment there, AB. I wanted to kind of piggyback on something that we mentioned earlier. Chief Jones said that he couldn't fail in his position, being the first African American there. But that's within your agency. What do you think your responsibility is for the African American community, being a leader of a law enforcement organization in particular? What do you think that responsibility is, to the community?
So here on the OSU campus, I wish I could remember the percentage of African Americans we have on campus, but it's not like really high. So we've been doing our best to recruit more students of color. When I became the chief, I would like to say that it kind of gave them a sense of, give everybody a sense of pride, but also it let them know that everything they say is not going to fall on deaf ears. I got the open door policy. I want them to contact me. I'm part of the Black faculty and staff here on campus, and we attend meetings quite regularly. I just want everyone here to know that they can walk the streets safe. They're not going to have an issue with any officers here. I mean, I had all our officers go through a diversity and inclusion training 2 years ago, and we're going to continue doing that each year as a refresher. It's really taken off, and now the whole campus is doing it. But I want my people to know that we all have a voice, and we should feel safe walking around. We shouldn't be afraid. Don't have to be afraid. And if they have any issues, they need to call and tell us. And if they want my number, they got it. Call and tell me directly. We'll look into it. We'll make sure we get this thing right. But we're going to move forward one way or the other, so we might as well get it right.
Right. And real quick, how large is OSU?
I believe we're up to 23,000 students.
Yeah, it's a small city right there.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole city.
Yeah, city within the city right there. Yeah.
And we work really well with the city of Stillwater and Payne County. So we got a trio going. I'm constantly trying to recruit, more diverse officers here. It's just really hard right now with everything that's going on in the world. But hopefully we can break that barrier and get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's piggyback on that for the next panelist here. what's going on in the world is affecting all of us, right? You know, as far as law enforcement and the African American community as well. What do you think your role is as leaders? And it kind of, you know, piggybacks on what I was saying before, as leaders in what's going on in the world today. You know, setting positive role models, examples for people to see, getting out there, like someone mentioned earlier, and being the voice of your agency. What role do you guys play in what everything that's going on in our world today?
I would like to start, Dale, by saying that being an advocate for our brothers and sisters in blue that do a good job, that leave their homes every day and are willing to take that bullet for anyone of any race, any color. Because by and large, that's what you have in law enforcement. You're a law enforcement officer, so that's the beauty of this show is that you get it. But I find myself advocating constantly out in the community. They want to be reassured that they're going to get a fair shake. It ties in nicely with your previous question. You know, when they see us out there, whether for those of us that are in a leadership position, whether we're dealing with an investigation or a crime scene. I can remember being on scene when I was the agent in charge, the assistant special agent in charge of that case, and whether the family was that of the victim or the suspect, there was just some reassurance there that somehow they were going to get a fair shake. They wanted their voices to be heard. So, what I had to explain to them was it wasn't because I was there as a representative of law enforcement and the African American community. The way we work within my agency is that we were going to give them a fair shake either way. If Agent Randall had not shown up on that scene, I can attest to the fact that the men and women that work within my agency, they don't matter if they're looking for a missing child of, a mayor of a city or a missing child of a homeless mother, or that of someone's son who's been killed. And the community always stood in awe of that. That's what I remember the most about working in a small South Georgia town is they just didn't believe that we cared as much, about the drug dealer that was shot point blank in the head, that we did not stop and we were relentless until we found those responsible and brought them to justice. So that's so I'm passionate about this particular piece because every day we're out here fighting, right? We're wearing the badge, but I love the name of the show, because we are black while wearing the blue. And we are sometimes persecuted and just crucified by our own people trying to figure out how do we stand that line shoulder to shoulder with our brothers and sisters in blue. So I'm constantly advocating for those men and women in uniform who leave their homes every day, treat everybody fairly, and are willing to lay their lives on the line for anybody, regardless of what they look like. That's how we continue to bridge that gap, but also acknowledging that there's work to do.
Absolutely. Raj Murtaugh on Facebook says, I love that thought process, Trebor. Props from Massachusetts. All right,
Thank
somebody
you.
from the Boston area tuning in to Black and Blue Live. You wanna notice anything? You wanna piggyback anything on that? What Trebor said, Ladon?
No, I think she hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, we're here to educate. We're here to make sure that, as police officers, make sure people understand that, by and large, individuals that choose this profession, that choose this calling, they do it for altruistic reasons. They're trying to do good, and we have to let that information get out there. Are there some people who, maybe did it for other reasons? Yeah, and do those people need to be held accountable when they step outside of bounds or break the rules? Absolutely. But by and large, police and law enforcement, we're here to help. We really are, and we're here to provide service. So I think Trebor hit the nail on the head. You know, we're African American, but we're also public servants, and that's really what it's about.
Public servants. Yep, absolutely. And real quick, there's a pretty high profile case right now where a decision was rendered, and then someone from the state came in and tried to talk about, that decision, that person being African American. So I kind of want to say, how do you guys, being African American, you guys have to make decisions and, render decisions and talk about decisions that were made in your department as the face of your department. How do you think the African American community feels about your decisions? Do they think that, you're being transparent because you're African American, or do they think that, you're kind of working for, you kind of switched, so you're not really going to give them a fair shake either way? What's your opinion on that?
I think that part of that has to do with what type of trust have you built, with the community before an incident happens. If the first time they're seeing, Chief Jones or Chief Reynolds or Tabor as a SAC, the first time they're seeing you is when there's some type of crisis, then you're already behind the 8 ball. Yep. So if you are building that trust where they see you, they know you, beforehand, they have some type of relationship with you beforehand, then when you tell them something, it's easier for them to believe that you're being truthful with them, because they have a certain level of trust with you that you've already invested, into the community, and you've already taken the time to build that trust. The other thing is that as law enforcement officers, we have to make sure, and as leaders, we have to make sure that everyone is treated with dignity, regardless of what that person did. Just look at our name, as far as whether you're law enforcement, your job is to enforce the law. Whether you're an investigator, your job is to investigate. Your job is not to be the judge. There's a judge for that. Your job is not to be the prosecutor. There's a prosecutor for that. Your job is to gather the facts and present those facts, in a subjective manner, to the person who's going to actually be the trier of the facts and the judge of that particular case. So if we treat everybody, if we start from there, that everyone deserves dignity and respect, whether they're right or wrong in what they're doing, then you're going to build that trust with the community. You're going to, whether you're African American, because some people say, oh, well, we need an African American chief. Not necessarily. You need the right chief, so it doesn't necessarily matter if that person is black, white, or Hispanic. You need the person who has the right temperament, the right judgment for that position, regardless of whether that person is male, female, or whatever, But it starts with just treating people with dignity and respect, and holding people accountable, even oneself. So if it's a situation where your department has made a mistake, then say that. My department, made a mistake, and we're going to work to correct that. Be transparent and build that trust. I think if you do that, then when you step in front of the community as an African American, in a leadership position, and that's the first time people are seeing you in a community, then they're going to be a little bit skeptical about what you're saying, and whether or not you're working for the man, or what you're actually doing. But if you're in that community, if they know you, on a first name basis, then they're more likely to accept what you're saying.
Trust you. That's right.
That's right.
I agree.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I appreciate the discussion that we had here today. Really eye-opening. You guys weren't too hard on my new co-host.
Thank you for being so kind. Thank you very much.
We'll say that for part 2.
for part 2, right? Yeah, that was really good. I appreciate everybody for coming on. Let me let you guys know that next time we have some other people on. She's going to be on as well. So everybody, please tune in to Black and Blue Live. I appreciate our guests coming on here, the 2 chiefs, the 2 SACs. That's the special agent in charge, if everybody didn't know that. Please check out the Black and Blue Live podcast with special guest Lieutenant Ben Kelso. My name was Dale, and I'm out. Thank you.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.